gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 277. Woo. As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard, Chris Saturn.
Hello.
Saturn, we do have some housekeeping. First up, this week we're going to have our producer Guy on for the after party, so stay tuned after the ending theme, and he will be there. Well, he's here now, but he's silent, but he'll be here more later.
That's good.
I also did want to mention we have a new recording schedule, so we're going to be recording an episode per week.
Right.
So,
for anyone who didn't know the movie magic we were doing in the background, we'd been recording 2 episodes whenever we recorded,
right?
And recording
for like
every
a year.
other week. Yeah, well, for more than a year.
Oh my god!
And so this is going back to weekly recordings for the first time in a little while now.
It's been a long time. So our reasoning was the reason we were doing 2 at a time was everyone was driving to my house where the studio was, and we don't do that anymore. So I was like, why are we still doing this? Because 4.5 hours of recording in one night, my voice is shot. I cannot speak until like the next day. So we're going to be doing weekly. For our uncut listeners, that means that you will be getting 1 show per week instead of 2 shows every 2 weeks. Yes. For our regular listeners, hopefully you don't notice at all. Hopefully everything stays mostly the same, and you'll just
still also get an episode a week.
Yeah, it's still going to be an episode a week because you've always had that.
Right. It just won't be in advance like the patrons get. Right.
So hopefully it goes well. Obviously, if for some reason we don't like it, we might go back. But I don't know.
We'll go back to doing a whole month at once.
There you go. We never did that. That sounds awful. Oh, my goodness.
Just set aside an entire day every month.
I know some podcasts do record large batches like that, and I don't know how they do it, man.
Right?
Holy cow. So, yeah, I did just want to say we're going to have a new recording schedule, so if the pacing seems different... Mm-hmm. It is probably because we don't have 2.5 hours of recording to do immediately after this, so we might feel compelled to take our time.
Might stretch our legs a little. Also, we won't already be hyped up from the previous episode.
That's true.
There will be less complete insanity at the beginning of episodes, so we'll have to fake that a little bit.
I'll just have to pretend that we're not normal. Oh, woe is us. Also, as always, you can check the episode description for timestamps to jump straight to the topic at hand. All that said, my week, actually weeks, because it was still 2 weeks in between recording sessions.
But it won't be anymore.
It will not be anymore, and it's gonna be. It feels so weird going to weekly. I'm like, I don't have time to do anything now, and I'm like, it's the same amount of time I was doing 2 episodes in 2 weeks before. Like, I don't know why I'm horrified that it's a week. I'm like, it's so soon.
I understand because there were plenty of times where I was just like, I'll just put it off for an entire week and not think about it for a week, and then stress about it the next week.
Oh yeah,
I don't have that anymore.
But I mean, really, it's the same amount of content on the same release schedule.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I did finally successfully hack my Vita.
Nice.
And I got all of the totally legal games downloaded directly off the PSN that I definitely bought. And it's been good. I did it. I hacked it. I got a bunch of games downloaded, and then I went, that's cool, and I shut it down and put it back on my shelf. And and went straight back to playing my Sega Genesis, my Sega Genesis Mini. I've been playing Shining Force.
Nice.
And and
we'll get to why here in a little bit.
I'm 3 out of 7 chapters through it.
Nice.
So I'm about a third of the way in, because I think there's 30 something, like 31 or 32 battles in the game, or maybe just 30, and I'm at somewhere between 10 and 12 battles in.
But you still feeling it at this point?
Yeah, it's been really fun. I've been enjoying it. It's
and this is your first exposure to Shining Force, right?
Yeah, I've not played... Now, there were the GBA games that I think were in the same universe?
Yeah, Shining
Soul. Yes, I played those a bit. But yeah, this is my first time really playing Shining Force, and I know everyone's like, oh, 2 is a masterpiece, you have to play 2, but I wanted to start on 1, because I feel like if I played 2, I won't go back to 1.
Now, if you really want to screw it up, play Shining Force 2, which is great, and then jump back to Shining Force CD. which is fine, but it's just 2 Game Gear games on a Sega CD.
It's been fun. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. A lot of centaurs.
As I love centaurs. I don't know if you know this about me.
I do now, I guess.
They are one of my favorite fantasy races.
If you had told me that a long time ago, I would have been like, "Oh, you mean like from Shining Force?"
Yeah, no, I booted the game up and immediately I was like, "Centaurs sold!" Like I was very excited. In a recent D&D adventure, I coaxed Andrew into playing a centaur, and it was immediately terrible for him because they were in a mountainous region and he couldn't climb like steps or ropes or anything, and he was
they had to set up a pulley system for him.
He was very upset, and like I remember one point they went to jump off a cliff and a guy cast a spell so he falls slowly, but he was way over the weight limit for the spell, so he just beefed it.
Plummeted.
The worst part is I didn't even feel bad. I was just excited that someone was being a centaur. Anyway, I've been
DM right there.
I've been really enjoying it. It is kind of what I thought Fire Emblem was and kept realizing it wasn't. Because I got into Fire Emblem with Awakening, which is a fantastic game.
Yeah.
And then I tried to play the sequels and didn't click with them. And then I tried to play the earlier ones and didn't click with them. And I was like, well, the newer ones are too like, there's too much stuff between the battles where it wants me to like have relationships and do like little anime dates and stuff. And I'm like, that's fine, but I don't come to a tactics game for that. And the earlier ones are just too dang hard. They're extremely difficult games.
Right.
And so I just wasn't as satisfied with any of them as I was with Awakening.
Yeah.
And going to Shining Force, it's what I want. It's mostly just pure tactics, a little bit of running around in between battles, and still a very forgiving system. I mean, it's still a hard game, but like compared to something like early Fire Emblems, it's much more forgiving. There's no permadeath. Like it's hard. I've talked about it before on the show. I really like strategy games, but I also really don't like hard games. And that's a small Venn diagram.
Right.
Not a lot of people in that. Most people are like, yeah, I want hardcore strategy. And I'm like, no, I want to always win.
Yeah.
All the time. And then maybe sometimes I struggle, but mostly I just want to win and feel powerful.
Right. I like the feel of thinking I'm a tactician, but I don't like losing.
Right. I don't want to actually have to be a tactician.
Right.
I just want to feel like I am one.
I want to be a tactician as much as I am a street fighter.
There you go. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so I haven't played it the last couple days just because Halloween's coming up and stuff's been going on.
Right.
But I'm excited to return to it. I've been playing a lot of my Sega Genesis Mini. I loaded a bunch more games on it. I'm at about 100 titles total on it.
Dang.
And it actually slows the interface down just enough so that it doesn't feel so weird and touchy.
Well, that's good.
I was like, oh man, it slowed it down. Because I had heard that if you put too many games on there, that slows the interface down, and it does. And about 100 slows it down where it doesn't feel like it's jumping all over the place.
That's something.
I also picked up and have been playing Deus Ex Mankind Divided.
Nice.
Which I pronounce very carefully because one time I was telling my boss about this game and he listened to me tell a 30-minute story about it and he thought I was saying Day of Sex.
Yeah.
And he thought I was just telling him about some weird hentai game for half an hour.
I used to have a coworker when I worked at a game store who did not understand how to pronounce Deus Ex.
Yeah.
So he called it Deuce Ex. But it always sounded like he was saying do sex, which sounded like a weird command.
Yeah. So yeah, he was just horrified until the end of it, and he timidly went, "I'm sorry, Day of Sex?" I was like, "No." But it's been fun. Cyberpunk was delayed, and I was like, well, I'll get my cyberpunky fix with the sequel to Human Revolution that I never played.
Oh,
and
you never played Human Revolution?
Well, no, I never played the sequel. Is what I meant.
Oh, okay.
I just phrased it very weirdly.
Right.
I didn't play Mankind Divided, and I really liked Human Revolution a lot.
Yeah.
And I'd never tried the sequel, and you know what? It has a way better opening than the original game, because I played a little bit of the first one, because I went to buy Mankind Divided and accidentally bought Human Revolution a second time.
Nice.
Because they're not called 1 and 2. God damn it. I'm confused, and it's been years since I've played it.
Right.
And so, yeah, I played some of the first one, and I was like, man, this is slow as shit. A lot of forced walking through laboratories while I get talked to. It's not a lot of fun. Mankind Divided is just like, you're a robot, kill guys. And that was more fun for me.
Yeah. I had I also have been playing a little bit of Mankind Divided, but I just picked it back up today.
Yeah.
I had enjoyed Human Revolution, even though on paper it's not really my kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
But
I was kind of wondering that because you were like, "Oh, I really liked Human Revolution." And I was like, "Man, it's a first-person shooter." Like,
right.
I mean, it's kind of stealthy, but it's still just a lot of first-person shooting, guys.
The story and the world building made up for it for me. Plus, it was one of the first PC games where I discovered Cheat Engine, so that helped a lot.
There you go.
But when Mankind Divided first came out, I had ended up picking it up on PS4 instead of on PC, just because it was really cheap on PS4 for some reason. Like Best Buy or somebody had it on Black Friday for like $25 or $30. Mm-hmm. And so I picked it up and I was like, I can do this. I can teach myself how to play a first-person shooter with a gamepad. Many people do it every single day. This is a thing that I can do, and I have never finished the tutorial on it. I die every single time in the tutorial mission on
I'll
the
tell
PS4.
You this, as someone who goes back and forth between mouse and gamepad, both the mouse and gamepad controls feel very inaccurate to me. It took a lot of me getting used to mouse aiming, and I tried to do it with a controller, and I could not do it at all. And this is after me playing Doom Eternal with a controller for a couple of weeks. Like, I can play first-person shooters with a controller. For whatever reason, the PC version of this game, or maybe I assume the port 2, just does not map to a controller. That it feels weirdly like hypersensitive.
Yeah, and it offers like 3 or 4 different controller layouts too. Mm-hmm. Like it really wants you to know about all of them.
It wasn't even the layout for me. It was just I could not get the sensitivity right. I spent the longest time adjusting it, and finally I was like, it's just not built for a controller. I've just decided whatever engine it's in or whatever does not work well with a controller.
It was built first for controllers and then ported to PC.
That makes no damn sense because they did a terrible job.
So yeah, I'm trying it on PC now, and I'm saved halfway through the tutorial. I still technically haven't finished it.
Yep.
So I'll find out if I can do it on PC any better than I could on console.
Yeah, I'm just past the prologue of it, so I'm just now getting to the you have to walk around and talk to people and definitely not do illegal things and get shot to death by cops, which I'm failing at miserably.
Right.
I've been shot to death by cops multiple times so far. I can't help myself. Like, I'm like, hey, there's a keypad. I'm gonna hack it. And in my head, I'm like, don't. There's a cop right there. And I'm like, maybe he won't see me. And he just immediately kills me.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, he did. All right. Well,
he definitely saw that.
He definitely saw a crime happening literally in front of his face. Who would have guessed?
Surprisingly effective cops here in New Detroit.
Anyway, that's all I've been up to.
So I've been replaying Guacamelee 2 on Xbox, and it's still good. And I wanted to specifically note it because it does something that I feel it deserves credit for. A lot of these newer indie platformer games have these hard as nail challenge segments. And sometimes it's the entire game, but in a game like this, it's just little segments.
Definitely.
And I wanted
it's for their little collectible thing. Whatever the collectible is in that game, you have to do little mini challenges. Like, they've all got it.
Yeah. And I wanted to give Guacamelee credit because it does an excellent job of giving you one of those hard as nails platforming challenges, but not making it frustrating. Like, each attempt that you make, you honestly feel like you made some progress, and you honestly feel good about yourself. Yeah. It makes you want to push harder. And I was thinking about, like, I was trying to figure out what it was doing differently than the other ones, and I was like, oh, maybe my respawn is faster, or maybe the respawn point is closer, or maybe I just get back into the action faster. Right. Then I got to another one of those challenges, and it was such bullshit. And I was so angry, and I was like, you know what? Fuck anything good I was about to say about them. They're assholes.
The first Guacamelee came out, and I started it, and I was like, man, this game is awesome. I love the aesthetic. I love the lore. I love the gameplay. Right. And then I just quit playing it. And then I got Guacamelee 2, and I did the exact same thing. I was like, this is great. And then I was just like, I'm not going to play anymore. I don't know why those games, I love everything about them, except playing them, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I enjoy both of them. They're both great games, but they have some pacing issues. I will say that.
Mm-hmm. Like, I never got far enough to see them.
Anytime I get to a save point and I'm like, oh, I should turn off for now, I don't want to turn it back on for some reason.
Yeah.
Because when I do turn it back on, I look at the map and I'm like, I'm just going to have to do a bunch of brawling challenges between here and where I'm trying to go. I'll do that later. And then I don't end up playing it. So I can understand that. Also, I am trying to give Dark Souls another shot.
I don't know why, because it's like someone was like, "Hey, how could we design a game that specifically Saturn would hate every portion of?"
Yeah.
And you're famously negative on the game, which that's fine. Like you don't like it, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're trying to fight through it so bad.
So the thing is that I constantly, like all over YouTube and online magazines and websites and stuff, I just constantly see it rated as some of the best game design, some of the best world building, some of the best storytelling, some of the best level design.
It's some of the best design within that genre. Like I'm not going to play the new Madden. I don't care how great the new sound design in it is, or how great the new sports design in it is.
But even the people that are talking in general, they're like, all games could learn from this of every genre. And I want to know what it is. I want to see whatever that magic secret that it has is. And so every now and then I'm like, I should give it another shot. And I did get further than I have the last 3 or 4 times that I tried it.
You got out of the prologue.
I got out of the tutorial area,
I
think. Hope.
Yeah, I saw where you were. You're out of the tutorial.
Yeah. Because before I would constantly die to it, because there's whatever that door is where it's like a cloudy door and you walk through it and you land on this boss.
Fog door, and then you fight the asylum demon.
Right. Yeah. And apparently you're supposed to do some sort of downward thrust on him and then just
That's what
survive.
The game wants. I can never get the stupid thing to work. And even then it doesn't kill him. It just takes away like half of his health. Like it just helps.
Yeah, every other time I've gotten there, I fall on him, I can't hit him, and he just like one-shots me like as soon as I fall before I can dodge or anything. He's just like, nope. But this time I did manage to land that downward strike, and then as I was dodging him and attacking him from behind, I realized they put in way too much effort in animating his ass.
They really, and what's weird is you're strafing around him, so you're shoved up it.
Yeah.
The whole fight, which is not, I mean, that's pretty common for Dark Souls games. Like you basically are, if you want to be behind the enemies.
Right.
But yeah, they really wanted you to see his big blubbery butt cheeks.
Right. And that's weird and awkward.
Yeah, I don't know why they put butt cheeks on him at all. He could have just had pants.
Right.
It would have been fine.
Or a tail or something. I don't know.
Maybe they could have painted a face on the ass to make it more welcoming. I don't know.
It's just very awkward. The whole fight ends up being awkward.
Yeah. And then, it does.
Yeah. But I did get past that, and I think I will maybe slowly try to chip away at getting further, but I am already getting discouraged again because I struggled my way to another campfire in the middle of an abandoned town.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
And I was like, all right, so now that I have healed and saved, I can go, oh, everybody's respawned again, right? They told me that. They told me that would happen, and now I'm already surrounded by people again.
Yeah.
And so
it's very much like if you are not the kind of person that likes very slow, methodical gameplay in which you bait out a single enemy and no, I grabbed 2, I'm gonna run all the way back to my bonfire and heal and try again, then it'll wear on you.
Well, or 2 of them followed me to my bonfire.
Yeah, that's problematic too.
Yeah.
Or if you're the kind of person that's like, I'm just gonna sprint past all the enemies, that also works. That's a valid. You can run through probably most of the game.
Well, my other issue with it is, so far anyway, is that the leveling system gives you way too much customization, and I'm overwhelmed already. Just
if you, I would say it's one of those games where if you're not following a guide, you just have to be okay with basically fucking your character up,
right?
Because you just will. My first playthrough, I didn't follow any guides or anything, and I reached a point where I was like, God, this game just feels impossible. Like, I know it's hard, but it feels impossible. possible?
Yeah.
And finally, I got the guide, and then it was like, okay, here's some builds you can do, and here's some ideas, you know. And I had just been putting. What I did is, anytime I got a weapon I wanted to use, but I couldn't, I would just dump points into that stat until I could use it, and then very often go, I don't like this weapon. And then just
just have all those points.
Yeah. So that I'm as much as I love the games, I'm not good at them. But yeah, a build guide is even if you're not going to like look up spoilers or story or where to go or whatever, a build guide helps a lot.
Now, one thing I learned, because when I was powering it up, it was being wonky, and so I looked on Steam, and there was this community guide that was how to make Dark Souls actually work on a PC.
Yeah.
And
far too many games require those kinds of guides.
Right, especially the older games for Windows Live games. They are notorious for needing that shit. And so I looked at it, and it was like, first thing before anything else, download this fan mod that fixes almost everything. And I go and I hunt down this fan mod, and it's made by the guy who ported all the Cold Steel games to PC.
Oh, cool.
And he was hired because he made that thing for Dark Souls. So that was neat. It was a neat little crossover.
Little tie-in.
Speaking of, Cold Steel 4 came out, and I've already poured 25 hours into it, and it's really good. And
so you're 2% into the game.
I'm probably about a quarter-ish of the way in, I think.
Yeah.
I'm between a quarter and a third of the way in.
So a mere 100 hours.
Yeah, probably.
God, they were really just cutting it short on that one, I guess.
It's gameplay wise, it's virtually identical to the one just before it, which is fine because the game system was fine. It's all been about new story shit, which I won't go into because, one, it won't make any sense to you, and two, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who's going to play it.
Right. That seems to be the big thing to go to the game for, is a story.
Yeah. Right.
But it's out and you can buy it.
Yep. And
let's fire through 2 weeks worth of news because of our shift to our weird recording schedule.
Yay.
So pardon me if I go quickly.
Yeah.
First up, Oculus is fucked. Oculus users are reporting issues with Facebook accounts. Facebook is banning users if they're logged into 2 headsets at once. That has since been fixed. They are banning new Facebook accounts and the connected Oculus account if a previous Facebook account had the same name or pictures, or if a name is suspected to not be real. And deleting a Facebook account will cause all Oculus purchases in a linked account to be deleted.
Classy Facebook.
That sucks. I will say recently a hack has come out that will let you get around the Facebook requirement. And thankfully, at least the Oculus One, I can't speak to the Oculus 2 because I don't have one. Right. The Oculus One has been hacked all to shit for a long time now. So at least people have some functionality there thanks to pirates and hackers, because those are the only people that seem to care about consumer rights.
Yeah. Wait, are you trying to imply that Facebook doesn't care about consumer rights?
All I'm saying is they're fascists. That's it. That's all I'm saying. And then I'm moving on. Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4 announced. Pi 4 power in a teeny tiny form factor at $25. For people that don't know, the Compute Module is basically just the processing power of a Raspberry Pi without all of the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and extra stuff and chips and things on it. People have done some cool projects with the Compute modules before, so I'm excited to see what comes out. I know the Pi 3 Compute module, people have taken that Retro Flag Game Boy case and they have 3D printed shells that hold the Compute modules, so you can put a full power Pi 3 in your Retro Flag case.
Pi-Zero.
So presumably they would do the same thing for the 4, which would be really cool.
That would be pretty neat.
Microsoft releases new iOS Xbox app for in-home streaming.
Yes.
So you can do that now.
But
it's
just
out there.
just if you have an Xbox already. Not to stream stuff from Game Pass.
No.
You still can't do that.
That's a no-no. Apple doesn't like that.
No.
They don't offer a competing service, but they don't want you to do it.
Right.
So don't do it. PS5 fan speed will be software controllable.
Because of course it will.
And I think I from what I understood, the system is not going to have a fan curve. It's going to be per software title that's going to have to be hard-coded in the software.
That's what I'm reading, yeah.
So let me see if I understand this correctly. For people that don't know, your PC, the way it normally works is it goes, I'm getting kind of hot. I'm going to spin my fan faster to cool myself off. It's called an intelligent fan curve. PCs have had them for a couple decades now, at least, probably longer. So if I have a PS5 and I live in California during a heat wave and my power goes out and it's 95 degrees in my apartment, and you own a PS5 and you live in Alaska,
right?
Then your PS5 is going to spin at the same speed as my PS5 because the software has to hard code it, which means mine is going to melt.
Actually, yours would not spin because you're in the heat wave power outage. You just said that.
Oh, dang. You got me. PS5s, you win this round. But what if I have a backup generator just for my PlayStation 5 Saturn?
Curses.
It just seems like the stupidest possible way to do this. Why would you not let the hardware dictate its own fan curve?
Because they did that the last few generations and everybody complained about the volume of the fan.
Because they did it fucking badly.
Yes.
They put in crappy fans that were not... Oh, I can't even... All right. Crow Team, the Serious Sam people, have been acquired by Devolver Digital. Good for them.
I like that you're still angry from the previous story, so it made it sound like you were angry about that one.
NISA announces that Rodea will be removed from the Wii U and 3DS eShops internationally. Did they give a reason for this one?
No, they did not. Now, it was already removed from the Japanese eShop a few months ago.
Yeah.
And everybody wondered what was going on, why it wouldn't be removed in international eShops, and now it is.
There you go.
But there were physical copies of both of them, so it's not like it's completely gone.
Oh, it's going to be very rare and scalped on eBay immediately.
Yeah,
so just get prepared.
Sure.
Also, prepare yourself for Australia banning imports of hentai and adult anime products. I don't know how that's video game related, but we put it in the news, and so we're going to read it.
I guess none of those Sanrin Kagura games are going to make it over there now.
Right. Yeah, I wonder how. I do wonder about
what the cutoff is.
Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, I'm sure they have a very specific. I'm sure some poor lawmaker somewhere had to sit there and be like, what about this kind of hentai? No. What about had to research every kind of hentai?
And probably the lawmaker themselves were just like, I don't know, hentai. And it's going to be up to the courts to determine all that.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to see a lot of weird charts and picture diagrams in Australian courts for upcoming product releases.
Assuming their legal system works anything like ours anyway.
True. Atari is releasing a tabletop Pong arcade machine, which actually looks kind of cool. If it's affordable, I might pick one up. It looks pretty fun.
Yeah.
Fantastic Night Dreams Cotton is being rebooted for release on Switch and PS4. Cotton is very fun, cute 'em up, where you play a little witch, and it's pretty good. So you should.
I'm pretty excited about this.
NISA is releasing R-Type Final 2 in the West on Steam, Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and Xbox X.
This is only the second title that NIS America has made on any Xbox platform, so that's weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nintendo is releasing Fire Emblem 1 in English.
Yes.
For a limited time on the eShop, and has also released a massive collector's edition for $50 that instantaneously sold out, but you can get it for a few grand on eBay.
Yeah. And it's a really neat collector's edition, too. It's got a classic NES-style box and a manual and a little fake cart and a Nintendo Power poster. Yeah. I don't remember what else was in there, but it looked really neat.
And for people that missed it, the digital version of this game is limited.
Right.
Fuck you, Nintendo.
And we, my first thought when I read the headline was, well, it doesn't matter because hackers are going to pull the ROM and it's going to end up on my Raspberry Pi any day now. But then I looked at the video footage of it, and they've added all these new features, and they look like they're more sophisticated than an NES on its own can handle.
So it may not just be a ROM.
Right. And the font also looks like it might be a slightly higher resolution than an NES can handle. So I think it's a port and not just a ROM.
This made me so mad that I think in the Discord, I was like, fuck you, Nintendo, I'm going to go play Sega. And I did. That's what made me hook up my Genesis and play Shining Force. And you know what? Shining Force is available. And I could buy it, and I could play it, and it's not limited.
Yeah, not only is it available on the Genesis Mini, which I think is still in stores, but it's also on the Wii U eShop. Or no, it's not on Wii U. It was on the old Wii. But it is on Steam. You can get it on Steam. You can get it on that
Isn't it on the Genesis collection?
Yeah. It is. So you can...
And it's a great game, and it doesn't have stupid goddamn permadeath. So I don't need your stupid game, Nintendo. You can keep it.
Yeah.
Sony shows on-screen in-game guides on the PS5.
That actually looks neat.
I'm for that. I enjoy that. That's good.
Yeah.
Nintendo adding an update to Super Mario 3D All-Stars to allow for inverted camera controls on all 3 games. So you wrongies out there who need your inverted controls can get them, which is a good thing. They should have had it at launch. How hard was that?
Yeah. It was apparently hard enough that it took them almost an entire month to patch it in.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Cyberpunk delayed again until December 10th. Devs plea for basic human decency online as they receive death threats, not because of the crunch they're forcing their employees to undergo, but because of the fact that they've delayed a game a few weeks. Right. Come on, people. Just grow up.
Why aren't the devs pleading for basic human decency when their employers ask them to work 100+ hours a week?
I don't know. Because they'll get fired and they know it.
Right.
Billy Mitchell watch. Billy Mitchell lost his case against Twin Galaxies, and is asking them, or asking to pay them, is being asked.
There we go.
To pay them. Billy Mitchell is being asked to pay Twin Galaxies $80,000 plus in damages. Beautiful. As well, he should have to. I don't think that's enough money. I'm just saying it. Got off light.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck him hard. Nintendo Mini Direct showcases Bravely Default 2, a new story of seasons, ports of No More Heroes 1 and 2 to Switch, and cloud versions of Hitman 3 and Control. Yeah. You ever want to not own a Switch game? Well, you can with Hitman and Control coming to a Switch. Well, not coming to a Switch near you. Being streamed to a Switch near you.
The good news is they look better than they would if they were running on a Switch.
I like the idea, but I don't know that I'm down for the long-termness of it, because when they stop doing those cloud servers, I don't have a game anymore.
Right.
And that sucks. Like if they were like, oh yeah, we'll gift you a GOG version of the game if this happens, then yes, I would do it.
Never gonna happen.
Yeah, I know, but
it's just a long-term rental.
All I want is for them to give me a game when they take my game away. It's a fair trade.
Yeah.
According to a new Sid Meier autobiography, there never was an overflow error on Gandhi's aggression, as the values weren't stored like that. Famously, everyone has been perpetuating what is apparently a myth or an urban legend, that the reason Gandhi is so aggressive in Civ is because of an error, an overflow error.
Yeah.
And that seems to not be the case.
And the weird thing is that the news reports I saw about this, that were quoting this autobiography, they said that the rumor was originated from a TV Tropes post like 10 years ago. I've been hearing this rumor for like 20-something years now.
Yeah.
So it's been around for a long time, and I don't know exactly where it originated, but it certainly wasn't TV Tropes.
Yeah.
I want to say it was probably PC Gamer or somebody decades ago.
I could see that. Just some magazine reporting somewhere. I could see a magazine being like, it might have been this, and then people just going, it definitely was that.
Because there were jokes about Gandhi nuking everybody in the advertising for Civ 3.
Now, do we verifiably know that Gandhi is specifically an aggressive nuker in the game? Or is it just that people are so taken aback that Gandhi is nuking them that they specifically notice it, and it's creating a false pattern in their heads?
It's hard to say. It's always been a joke about the franchise, in the same way that it's always been a joke about the franchise that Spearman beats Tank.
Yeah.
But
it just makes me wonder if, like, is Gandhi really that overly aggressive, or is he a regular level of aggression and you just don't expect it from Gandhi?
Right. So it's hard to say.
Interesting. Final Fantasy 16 supposedly releasing in 2021, and an international website available now that you can go look at that it doesn't have stuff about the characters. It's got trailers.
I believe so. Yeah, it's got some trailers, and they just released a new trailer.
Yeah.
So it's neat.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I believe the release date yet.
I
we'll
don't.
see.
I don't either. I mean, anyone can set a release date,
right? I was initially not at all excited because that's my default state for new Final Fantasies now,
right?
At least since 10. But then I learned that it's being directed by I want to say his name is Naoki Yoshitaka. He goes by Yoshi P. That's his nickname, and he's the director of Final Fantasy 14.
Yoshi P was a canceled item in Super Mario World. They didn't include it.
A whole vial of Yoshi P.
It's how you attract all the Yoshis to help you out.
Yeah, you got to get their musk. But no, he has proven in Final Fantasy 14 that he has a deep love for old Final Fantasy lore.
Yeah,
and that's enough to get me interested in this game.
Oh yeah. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. I'm excited for it. I didn't like 15, but I appreciate it for what it was, and I'm glad that it exists.
Well, fortunately, nobody from that staff is on board on 16.
Well, good. Xbox boss Phil Spencer hints at Xbox streaming sticks, which I'm totally down for. I'm as much as I'm like want to be old and curmudgeon-y and be like, I don't want streaming to be the future. I'm kind of like, well, if it's Microsoft's version of it, I'm kind of okay with it, you know? Like,
yeah, just because of their pricing right now.
Yeah,
I mean, if their pricing structure drastically changes in the future, my opinion will change drastically.
Yeah.
But I am okay with more ways to play games, and the reason why I am currently willing to forgive Xbox streaming is because they're not making me repurchase every single game in order to stream it, which seems to be the standard.
Microsoft seems to be in the camp of, if you give us like $15 a month, we'll basically give you the whole farm.
Yeah, it's a Netflix
Just
scenario.
Keep doing that for forever, please.
Right.
Anyway, that brings us to the topic at hand. We are talking about a wonderful little game. I believe it's pronounced Bubble Bobble.
As Bubble Bobble.
There you go. We're talking Bubble Bobble, which you might have heard is a game about two young boys that are turned into bubble-blowing dinosaurs to save their girlfriends.
Yes.
A classic tale for the ages.
Certainly no drugs involved in that.
None at all. We did have some listener feedback. First up is Shebang Bin Bash.
Nice.
Who says, this game has a special place in my heart because I spent so much time playing with my brother. The delicious earworm of a song, the tight controls, the ability to continue where you left off, the addictive gameplay, and the fun sense of humor with the various messages worked into the level designs all combined to make this a game I was happy to share with my youngest son.
Nice.
Elk Neodaphs writes in, Bubble Bobble is Taito at the top of their game, a title only surpassed by Space Invaders in sheer prominence. Yeah. The controls are tight, the action is intuitive, and the hurried pace will have you sweating. Take too long and you'll be hunted by the Skell Monster. Yep. My friends and I would move quickly, outpacing the ghost whale, as we called it, putting our reflexes to the test to defeat robots, fireball ghosts, and propeller assholes. Cool Hand Stan Man writes in, a perfect example of kawaii Japanese culture infecting American children in their hopes of overtaking the world via toys and games.
I did spend way too much on Bubble Bobble plushies, and I'm not even ashamed of it.
He obviously that's a joke, but there was in the early 90s a weird thing where people like, is Japan trying to take over our children?
Yeah. It wasn't just the early 90s. It was all of the 90s.
Yeah, basically the whole 90s.
Because even Pokemon, they were still saying that.
IG Amazing Bob says, over 30 years ago, Bubble Bobble became one of the first NES games we ever owned, and I still have fond memories of playing two-player with my dad almost every night. To this day, he still talks about the game, and my mom, who never played video games, still remembers Bubble Bobble fondly for being the cute dinosaur game with the heart level.
Nice.
As far as our first encounters, my grandmother had an NES and a stack of games at her house, and we'd play those when we visited.
Sure.
And this was many years after the system was relevant.
Right.
But among the small pile of games was Bubble Bobble. It was Bubble Bobble, Metal Gear, Life Force, and that's all I remember. We didn't play it much because we were usually too busy with either Life Force or Chip's Challenge on her even then ancient Windows 3.1 machine. And this would have been like the late 90s.
Nice.
And so, yeah, we had it. I honestly never thought once about it again since then until meeting you and finding out that 1, it was a port of a game, and 2, that there are more games.
Oh, yeah, there's a ton.
I had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have an idea now because I'm doing this show, but I didn't before I knew you.
Yeah. Also, you probably learned that it is very beloved and has a huge fan base out there.
And it does, and I don't get it. We'll talk more about it. We'll talk more.
Yeah, see, oddly, my grandparents also were out of date on consoles, but because I'm older than you, they never upgraded beyond Atari.
Yeah.
So anytime I would go over there in the mid-90s, we'd be like, you want to play Donkey Kong or Frogger or Pac-Man?
You're like, no thanks.
Yeah.
I'll just go
No,
read.
I would still play those. Anyway, we rented Bubble Bobble shortly after we got our NES, so this probably would have been 87, 88, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And I have been chasing that high ever since because that was just such a infectiously positive gaming experience for me and my siblings and our friends that we were trading the controller and laughing at each other constantly dying and it was a very communal experience and it birthed a lot of the it was one of the first simultaneous multiplayer games we played and it led to a lot of our future multiplayer gaming.
Yeah. As far as release information for the original arcade version, it was developed by Taito. It was published in Japan by Taito. In North America, it was put out by Romstar.
Romstar.
In European territories, it was put out by Electrocoin.
I'm not even sure Electrocoin's a real company.
It doesn't sound. It sounds like something that you spend in a RoboCop movie for like a space soda. So yeah, I don't know. It released in September of '86 in Japan, sometime in '86 in North America, and there's no European release date listed for the game.
Because Electrocoin doesn't exist.
All the European listeners right now are like, "What is Bubble Bobble?" Like it's just never. They don't even know. They just never came out there.
No, Ocean ported every Bubble Bobble game to every platform in Europe.
Well, there you go. Sarah, tell me about the development of Bubble Bobble.
So the designer was Fukio Mitsuji. And the game was intentionally designed to appeal towards women.
Women do love dinosaurs and bubbles. It's well known.
Obviously. The idea of bubbles was chosen because it was believed that popping a lot of bubbles at once would be exhilarating for players. Remember, this was 86. This was still pretty early in video gaming.
I see that you anticipated my disbelief.
Yeah, so this was a year after Super Mario Brothers. This was before Zelda, before Mega Man, before this is earlier than many of the things we have covered on this show.
Right.
So the original character design was a robot with spikes on its head, but Mitsuji felt that wasn't cool enough, so it was replaced with dinosaurs. Many of the enemies were just taken wholesale out of another Taito game, Check and Pop.
I just like saying Check and Pop. It's just exciting to say.
Right.
Check and Pop.
Have you ever played Check and Pop?
No, I don't want to.
Most people haven't either.
But I do want to say Taito's Check and Pop over and over again.
I don't even think Check and Pop ever came out in the U.S. on any platform.
Good.
But anyway, so Mitsuji imagined that the game would regularly be played by couples in arcades. So they designed multiple endings around having a second player present, and they designed all of the different actions that the players do in the game based on always having another player there, which, as somebody who mostly plays games single player, fuck you.
Yeah, it's
I can't get the good ending because I don't have a second player around all the time.
Yeah, it was hard for me doing research for this show because I did play some multiplayer. I played the NES version with Andrew for a little while.
Yeah.
But then I was playing different ports of it by myself, and it was kind of discouraging to just know that I'm not going to get the good ending even if I do finish the game.
Yeah, and the game is enormous too. So if you put in all that effort just to be told, try again, that's frustrating.
As far as the story, it is about two brothers named Bubby and Bobby.
Right.
And the evil Baron von Blubba kidnaps their girlfriends and turns them into bubble dragons.
Yes.
They must survive a 100-floor cave of monsters in order to rescue them. That's it.
Now,
you're done.
That's actually a mistranslation of the story, and I'll get to that later when we talk about the enemies, because they picked the wrong enemy there. That's not who kidnapped the girlfriends. But Taito America apparently thought the name Baron von Blubba was too good to let go, so they went ahead and used it there too. In fact, the upcoming DLC for Bubble Bobble 4 Friends on Switch and PS4 is called, it's like The Baron Strikes Back or some shit like that, just to reference that translated name.
The graphically, it's a very good. It's a pretty good looking game. The arcade version is very good looking. Oh, yeah. I vastly prefer that it has colored backgrounds, which adds a lot to the game. Oh, yeah. And I'm gonna mostly compare it to the NES port because I do feel like that's kind of the most famous port of the game
over here. Anyway.
Yeah. In America, it's probably the most famous version of the game overall.
Yeah.
But the NES port is pretty bland by comparison.
It's pretty Spartan, yeah.
I mean, on its own, you've still got the cute little sprites, but the levels themselves are very barren.
Right, and it was a fairly, I wouldn't say it's a super early NES game. It was after Super Mario Brothers, but it was still early enough in the console's library that it didn't stand out as looking bland at the time.
And sound-wise, there's really only a couple songs, but they're very good songs.
Oh man, the theme to Bubble Bobble has been stuck in my head for at least 32 years now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now there's if you're out there on the internets, which you probably are, if you look around, there is a cover of the Bubble Bobble theme done by a marching band, a high school marching band. And they remixed it so that it bridges into the themes to Rainbow Islands and the New Zealand story. And they're high schoolers, so it's not perfect, but it's still really neat. And,
well, you're going to sandbag them.
And I believe the last time I found it on the internet, it was called Bandle Bobble.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
It's a good music. It's very good music. It's very like
catchy.
Early 80s, late 70s arcade kind of music. You know what I mean? Where it's like, we've got the one song, it's going to be really good, but we just got the one song, really, that's it for
it feels
a bajillion levels. Yeah, I mean, like as far as the complexity of the song, yes. I just meant as far as like being an arcade game with really only one major notable song.
Right.
It feels very...
70s, most games didn't have songs at all. That was
what about the late 70s Saturn?
Even then, because Pac-Man was 80 and it didn't really have
was Pac-Man 1980? Music. I don't know why I feel like Pac-Man was so much earlier.
Yeah.
Because Pong was 77?
Yes.
Or was it earlier
76 or 77.
Okay.
One of those two.
Yeah. Let's talk gameplay in Bubble Bobble.
No, Pong is 72. The Atari 2600 is 77.
Oh, that must be what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
There you go. Pong was way early.
Yes.
Let's talk gameplay. Each stage is limited to a single screen. The bottom of the screen loops around to the top of the screen, so you cannot fall to your death.
Right.
And each of the 100 stages are a different design, and many are basic. Others have specific shapes or words. They do fun things where they kind of build like little traps where to get certain enemies, you have to stick yourself down in a little hole and then like jump yourself out on the bubble.
Right.
It's if we talked about all of the level design, we'd be here for many hours.
Yeah.
But as single screen arcade puzzle games go, it has some pretty fun and inventive design.
Right. As far as a single screen game, it feels very deep just because of how many screens there are that you can get to.
Additionally, the different color palettes help a lot.
Right. Not just color palettes too. Sometimes the border bricks are different designs entirely. Sometimes they have little hearts in them. Sometimes they're just little squares. Sometimes they have dots and all kinds of other stuff.
To compare it to again a much earlier game, but still a single screen maze-based game like Pac-Man, it feels much more diverse than something like that. Even though on paper it's not a lot more diverse than something like that. So they really do put a lot of effort into making each stage look and feel and play differently, which is nice. Players control either Bub, who's the first player, or Bob, who's the second player. They are green and blue colored bubble dinosaurs, as we've covered before. And you have two primary functions, which are to blow bubbles or jump.
Yes.
You can jump on the bubbles by either pressing the jump button the second you touch a bubble, or by holding the jump button when landing on a bubble. And bubbles can... Go ahead.
I didn't realize that you could just hold the button until I was almost 20, and I was so angry when I realized
you telling
how
me
many
that helped
years
a lot
of my life.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And bubbles can be popped by either standing on them without jumping, or by popping them with the spikes on the characters' heads and backs. And I do want to talk about the gameplay a bit, because I find it slightly... I can't even think of the word. I have trouble adjusting to it.
Oh.
It's jumping on top of bubbles to pop them makes sense to me.
Right.
But then a lot of times I forget that what is actually popping the bubbles are my feet or my spikes, and I'm trying to pop bubbles with like the front of my head, and it doesn't work.
Now you can do it with the top of your head if you jump into them.
True. But I do even after a lot of Bubble Bobble playing, I do kind of struggle with forgetting that I cannot pop bubbles with the front of me.
With your face.
Yeah, I can't face pop bubbles, which doesn't make sense, because in real life I can pop a bubble with my face.
That's true. But these are dino bubbles. They're much stronger.
It's the dino saliva. It's very it's
very
it's viscous.
Viscous
is what it is. But gameplay wise, it's fun. And it may just be that I've not played the game for 30 years. But I do struggle to feel like I'm fully in control of what I'm doing all the time in Bubble Bobble.
All right.
It feels like I'm just one weirdly angled bubble pop away from losing it most of the time.
Fortunately, I have 30 plus years of Bubble Bobble under my belt, so I still just mostly fail. But I feel like I'm in control of my failure, at least.
Yeah, and I don't mean it to say that like it's not fun or I don't enjoy it. It's a little, I think, imprecise is the word I'm looking for.
That's fair. I mean, it is pretty early platforming.
Right. There's a little bit of precision that I wish the game had, that it just doesn't quite. It just feels a little. I don't even want to say slippery, because the controls are tight, but they're just very specific.
Yeah, and I think my biggest complaint are the hitboxes, because they sometimes make
weird ones. Yeah, I feel like sometimes when I'm trying to pop an enemy bubble, it's like it's just not going to do it. The game's like, nope, you didn't get that one right. And I'm like, how? How did I not get it? I'm covered in spikes. I'm a dinosaur. But yeah, enemies are specific to each stage, which is nice and does add to the variety.
Right.
And I'm just gonna fire through the enemy list, and
so I have the modern names for all these enemies, which is also their Japanese names. But I have included all of the original translations, either the U.S. or European original translations, because some of them are just dumb as hell and worth enjoying.
So I'm just gonna fire through these, and you can just comment as you see fit.
Right.
First up, you have Zen-chan, also known as Benzo or Bubble Buster.
Yes.
Which is a little toy robot designed for Chack and Pop, but not used in the game.
Right.
You have Maita, a.k.a. Boris or Stoner. And these are the ghost-like enemies in white robes that go across the screen, which were originally in Taito's Chack and Pop.
Yeah, they're the ones that throw the rocks at you.
Yeah. You have Monsta, a.k.a. Blubba or Beluga, which is the purple flying whale, also originally from Chack and Pop.
Right.
You have Pul Pul, also known as Boa Boa or Hullaballoon, which is a weird orange thing with yellow hands and a propeller.
That's the propeller bastard.
Yes, the propeller assholes. You have Bane Boo, a.k.a. Bonnie Boo or Coily, which is a head on a spring with boxing gloves. It jumps around at you.
Right.
You have Hygian, a.k.a. Incendo.
I think it's
oh, pardon me. Hidagon?
Yeah.
I read it as pigeon. It's a Hygian, a.k.a. Incendo. These are the little purple fuzzy creatures that shoot fireballs. You have Drunk, a.k.a. Bonner, not Boner, or Willy Whistle, which could also mean Boner. What is this character's... What's your name? Well, you can call me Drunk, Boner, or Willy Whistle. I'm not going to call you any of those. This is a little man in a robe that throws beer bottles in a boomerang fashion.
Correct.
Like someone's hillbilly dad.
Yep.
You have Invader, a.k.a. Super Socket, which is based on the Taito's, Space Invaders design. They're robots that move left and right and fire lasers downward. You have Skell Monster, a.k.a. Baron von Blubber, a skeleton version of Monster that appears if you take too long to finish level, which I always do. It can move through walls and can be captured in bubbles. It will move toward the closest player in 2-player mode. 2 will spawn at once, but 1 will despawn as each player dies.
Right.
And in secret rooms, a creature named Rascal appears instead, and it acts the same as Skell Monster, but looks like a pickle.
Yes, with a smiley face.
You have Super Drunk, a.k.a. Grumple Grommet.
Yeah.
Which is the failed McDonald's mascot. Which is an enormous drunk who kidnapped Bubby and Bobby's girlfriends. This is the guy.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Is the real one.
A drunk guy captured their girlfriends?
No, a super drunk.
He bounces around the room throwing bottles and can only be damaged by lightning.
Now, did you get to the super drunk fight?
Which level?
100.
No, I didn't make it to the end of the game.
You didn't use any passwords to jump to the end?
Well, I was gonna on the NES, but then I was like, no, I want to beat it for real. And then I was playing the arcade one, and I do have some complaints about the arcade one, and then I didn't go back and do it on the NES. No.
So the way the fight works is you can't hurt him at all with bubbles, and he just bounces around the room, and he's like 10 times bigger than you. He's enormous.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen the final battle.
Yeah, so you have to grab a bottle of lightning juice, which allows you to spit lightning bubbles instead of regular bubbles. And then you just spit a bunch of lightning bubbles and then pop them so that the lightning will hit him. Yeah. And you have to hit him 100 times.
Go ahead and go over the basic objective and gameplay loop that people are in here.
Yeah, so your standard way, you basically just have to defeat all the enemies to finish each stage. Yeah. And the standard way to defeat enemies is to trap them in a bubble and then pop the bubble before the enemy escapes the bubble. Because if you don't pop them in time, they become agitated, and then they turn red, and then they move around faster, and they get angry. Now, you can also kill enemies using special bubbles, the fire, lightning, or water bubbles. Yeah. And failure to defeat the enemies within time results in the hurry up display, and then Skell Monster shows up and will chase you down. If a player dies, all the agitated enemies go back to being normal enemies, and if the music was sped up because you were in hurry up mode, it goes back to normal. Yeah. If multiple enemies are popped at once, 3 or more enemies in one burst, then you'll get an extend bubble from the top or bottom of the screen, assuming that the stage has room for them. Right. And if you're not in a stage that has room, they'll just show up in the next stage.
So I've always mentally equated the gameplay in Bubble Bobble with Mario Brothers arcade.
I could see that.
And it's because you don't just kill enemies, you have to do 2 things.
Right.
You have to disable them and then hit them.
Right.
And it's for some reason I've always these 2 games. I'm like, yeah, those 2 games where you have to disable them and then knock them out.
That makes sense. That makes sense to me.
And I do have a bone to pick with, but I feel like I'm just complaining. The game is fun. I like the game, but listen, the arcade version, gameplay wise, is great, and visually is great. Yeah. It's a fantastic version, but it's goddamn impossible. And here's why: whenever you die in Bubble Bobble, you die in real life. Whenever you die in Bubble Bobble, you don't get to put in a quarter and continue where you were. You're done. It's a game over.
Unless the second player is playing.
Right, but then I have to have a second player and be switching between the 2. That's just too much, Saturn.
See, the way that I did it was I just mapped a player 2 start button to my controller. So whenever I was down to my last life, I would just hit start and join in a second player and then just keep playing first player. Then when I'd die, I'd join back in and just let the second player die off until I was about to die again.
But I couldn't even imagine, how did they expect anyone to beat this in the arcades? I guess they didn't. They wanted you to put in 400 quarters.
Right. Well, they expected couples to be playing it.
Yeah, yeah.
They would each put in $100.
And I played a lot of different ports of the game. And the NES port is the only one that I can find that I've played that lets you just continue where you left off, because it gives you a password. And you can just keep putting in passwords and just keep right on trucking where you were. And I do wonder about the legacy of the game, because again, in America, the NES port is by far the most popular, widely beloved version of Bubble Bobble.
I believe some of the microcomputer versions also have password support.
I wonder if the NES version was as unforgiving as the arcade. If it was as unforgiving as the arcade version, would it have been nearly as popular? Because Bubble Bobble, especially at my grandma's house when we were kids, there was like the little baby game that little kids played because even if you died, you just punch in the like 5-digit code and keep going.
Right.
And I do kind of wonder if because the arcade, it's a tough game.
Yeah.
You know,
and the further you get, the harder it gets too.
Yeah, so I just had that thought when I was playing the NES version, then going back and forth between NES and arcade. Like, I prefer the NES version tremendously because it's just an easier time.
Right.
But the arcade version looks and sounds so nice.
It does look great. Now, the one that I least recommend is the PlayStation and Saturn port.
Really?
Because those versions are just...
I've heard bad things.
Yeah, they're just an arcade emulator, and it's not even a good arcade emulator because it has some issues, and it only gives you 3 credits for both players total for the entire game.
That's ridiculous.
Yes.
I fought with so many different... I think I played every arcade version, including all the bootlegs that were ever produced. Or at least that are available in the Final Burn Neo ROM set, which is, I think it's 6 or 7 different versions of the game I played.
Right.
And some of them are faster, some of them are new levels, some of them have different gameplay tweaks, but none of them give you the option to continue.
Unless you join in with the second player.
Yeah, unless you're doing that weird second player trick. Your weird hacks, Saturn. Your weird, ridiculous hacks.
Right. But even when I would play it in the arcade... if you didn't have a second player, once you got down to that last life, it wasn't unheard of to just join in with player 2 and just jump over to the other side of the machine.
It just seems so weird that it wouldn't have a continue.
Right.
That's such a strange arcade. I guess
it was just really early, and that wasn't a standard feature yet.
I suppose. It's just strange. I think what it is that there is a kind of narrative arc to the game that they seem to want you to go through, you know, and so it seems strange that there wouldn't be the ability to continue that arc because no one's going to beat this in the arcade. I mean, I'm sure some couple did.
It's hard as nails.
But yeah, it is tough. Saturn, tell me about the special bubbles.
So there's 5. You've got your water bubbles, which when you pop them, it pours water down and it'll flush enemies down to the bottom of the screen until they just fall off and turn into diamonds. You can also get caught in the wave, but you can jump out of it. They're fire bubbles that when you pop them, it just makes fire appear on the ground underneath where you popped it. And the player is slowed down if they touch fire because they're a dinosaur. Dinosaurs are impervious to fire. But enemies instantly die if they touch it.
Right.
Lightning bubbles, when you pop them, they launch a lightning bolt across the screen, usually in the opposite direction of whatever direction you're facing. And any enemies that touch the lightning bolt will die. Then you have red bubbles, or special bubbles, which will allow you to breathe fire for 5 stages, which just instantly kills things.
For 5 whole stages?
For 5 whole stages.
I never got one of those.
Yeah, I know, because they only appear in about 9 of the 100 stages, and they have a 1 in 4,096 chance of appearing.
Holy shit. This sounds like the kind of thing that would happen to a kid in the arcade, and he'd be like, I swear I got a fire bubble, and everyone would be like, no, you didn't. Yeah. You liar. I've played that game for many hours.
Until I had a Game Genie, I thought that kid down the street was fucking lying about it. And then, of course, the extend bubbles, which we mentioned earlier. It's 6 bubbles that spell out the word extend. So there are 2 different E-bubbles of different colors. And if you get all 6 of them, the stage immediately ends and you get a 1-up.
There are a lot of items in the game.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to fire through them.
And I truncated this list, too.
There are tons of items in the game. Yes. Most of them appear after meeting specific conditions, like interacting with various bubbles in different ways, and or a number of times, or falling off the screen. It's just weird. You have fruit and gems, which are points. You have candy, which increases bubble distances. Shoes, which speeds you up. Clock, which freezes time. Dynamite, that kills all enemies. Parasol, that is a level skip. A gold door, that is also a level skip. A silver door, that is also a level skip.
No, that one takes you to the secret room.
Oh, pardon me. That's the secret room. You have holy water that fills the stage with various bonus points, items. You have check and heart, which makes you invincible. Rings, which give the player extra points for taking basic actions. A cross, And blue crosses flood the stage, killing all enemies. Yellow crosses cause lightning to kill all enemies, and red crosses allow for the player to breathe fire instead of bubbles. For 16 shots, you have lamps. They give you other stuff. You have Book of Death and Star Tiara, which kills all enemies in various ways. You have necklaces, which cause an energy ball to bounce around if they're purple, and if they are red, they cause 10 extend bubbles to appear. You have a fork that causes food to fall from the sky. You have a treasure chest.
Wait a second. Hold on a second. The fork.
Okay.
So it just, makes food fall down and kill things, but it only appears if you enter the name sex on the high score table. But the game is explicitly programmed to change the name sex to something else to prevent the fork from appearing. So you basically have to hack the game to force the name sex onto the high scoreboard in order for the fork to even appear.
And it's not even that great of an item. Because there are many other items that kill enemies in lots of different ways.
Yes.
I
felt that needed mention.
You have treasure chests and magic canes, which spawn diamonds or food, and then you have a bell that chimes to alert when special items appear. There are so many freaking items in this game, and they all do different stuff. It's not like they're all just points, because for the longest time, I was like, are these just all points? There's so much different stuff. I don't know what to get. I don't know how to activate it. And it seems that Bubble Bobble enthusiasts they play the game in a specific way to trigger specific items to make the game easier for them, but it's just so tremendously complex for such a basic game where you're two bubble dinosaurs.
And when you get to the sequels, especially Rainbow Islands, but to an extent Parasol Stars as well, some of those power-ups are basically necessary to stay alive in anything past the first few levels. So you really get in that habit of doing those exact things necessary to get all those necessary power-ups.
Yeah. There's a surprising amount of complexity to this game. Now, granted, for the most part, you don't really need to understand how really any of the items are triggered.
Yeah, you just blow bubbles.
But if you really want to get like hardcore about Bubble Bobble, the depth is there.
Oh, yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Tell me about the endings that I never reached.
So there's three. There's the bad ending, which is what happens when you beat the game in single player. You will rescue Betty, which is Bubby's girlfriend, or if you're playing as Bob, you'll rescue Patty, which is Bobby's girlfriend.
I'm sorry, one of them doesn't have a B name?
Right.
Well, that's upsetting.
Yeah, Betty and Patty are dating Bubby and Bobby.
Why couldn't it be Betty and Batty? It would fit the theme.
What the fuck is Batty?
I don't know. You tell me.
So, you only rescue the one girl, and then the game chastises you for leaving the other girl there and tells you to come back with your friend.
Yeah.
Then you have the good ending, which is when you have both players present. Both girls are rescued, and then the game tells you, but this isn't the true ending, and gives you this encoded message on how to play the super mode. And it's an encoded message.
It's in like a full-on, like different language. Like it's like a cryptograph.
Yeah, like you needed a cipher wheel to know what letter is which. And to decipher it, you have to go to the first secret room, the one that can spawn in level 20 if you meet the right conditions. And the background in that secret room has the cipher.
Now, here's the thing about this is an arcade game. You cannot fucking pause it to write this shit down.
No.
You could not take a screenshot. Nope. How did they expect anyone to get the true ending?
If you took too long in the secret room, that fucking pickle will come after you and kill your ass.
The goddamn pickle.
So you gotta. I assume they just expected everybody to have $1 million worth of yen coins to just keep pouring into the machine until you figured it out.
It reminds me a lot of games like Tower of Druaga that had lots and lots and lots of secrets packed into a relatively simplistic arcade game.
Right.
And I do feel like that kind of is what differentiates this era of arcade game from earlier eras like Pac-Man or Galaga or whatever that didn't really have secrets and stuff
there's no
packed into them like that.
Coded there.
It was like, what if we made it tremendously complex, but then just made it about bubble dinosaurs?
Yeah. So if you get the true ending, which you've put in a lot of effort at this point, you get to the end, you save Patty and Betty, and a giant bubble dragon appears, and it turns into Bub and Bob's parents, who say, "Congratulations, you could help your father and mother. They were controlled by someone who is he. No one knows of it. The truth is in the darkness forever. ...
And at no point in any other portion of the game does it tell you your parents are controlled by someone.
Yeah, or that they've been turned into a giant bubble dinosaur.
Oh my God.
In fact, that's never referenced again anywhere in the series.
I hope you feel very accomplished.
Yeah, you get some pride and accomplishment there. Fortunately, the game itself is fun, so the ending is really unnecessary.
Yeah, it is one of those games that, I mean, don't play Bubble Bobble to beat it or for the story.
Certainly not for the true ending. Don't do that.
Just play it because it's a fun arcade game.
Right.
And then look up the screenshot of the ending and go, I did it. That's good enough.
Victory.
Let's talk reception and legacy.
Yeah. So as far as reception goes, it was received well. However, it was early enough that there weren't a ton of reviews. You get some reviews of the ports, and it was generally received pretty well. You get a lot of 80s and 90s for the various ports to various consoles. But it was ported to the Amstrad, the MSX, the ZX Spectrum, C64, the Master System, the NES, the Amiga, the Atari ST, the Apple II, DOS, FM Towns, the Sharp X68000, the Game Boy, the Game Gear, Windows 98, Windows XP, Java-based feature phones, the Wii, the 3DS, the Wii U, and the PS4 as of now. That is at least the ones I could find.
Now, what port would you say is the best version?
I have been told that the Master System version is excellent, and playing it looks great, but I haven't gotten far enough in to really say anything. The NES is the one I have the most nostalgia for, but as you said, the arcade version does look the nicest, and if you're playing on an emulator anyway, you have infinite credits, so you can just cheat and cheat your way to the end.
Long as you're going to be cheating with the second player bouncing back and forth, and don't screw up and forget to hit the 2-player start before you die.
Oh, that's so painful.
Because then you still lose all your progress.
In level 80 something.
I really liked the Game Gear port a lot.
Right, which is the Master System port.
Yeah, it's the same version, and I played the Master System version as well. Yeah. The Game Gear one, it scrolls the screen instead of shrinking everything down to make it fit. Which
the Game Boy does that too.
Does it? Oh, I did play some of the Game Boy one. It felt like the Game Boy one redesigned the levels.
It did.
The Game Gear version felt like it was pretty close to the original levels.
Yeah. Now it's pretty close to the original levels for a while, because the Master System and Game Gear version in Japan is known as Final Bubble Bobble, and there's actually some new items and eventually new levels and even new bosses as you get further into the game. But you have to get pretty far to get to any of that.
Yeah. The NES port is I feel like that would be the one that I recommend to someone.
Yeah.
If they were like, I want to play Bubble Bobble, which version I should play, I'd probably go NES. Because yes, you can do weird 1- and 2-player tricks and stuff on the arcade versions. This Sega Master System and Game Gear versions are very good, but they're all very much geared against a couple of seconds of you not paying attention. You've lost all your progress, and being able to keep that progress is nice on the NES version.
That said, on the NES version, there is a bonus where if on level 99 you happen to collect a crystal ball, then instead of going to level 100, you'll go to a bonus level, and then there's 12 more bonus levels that aren't in any other version of the game. It was advertised heavily as a bonus feature, and on the NES version, it's the only way to get the true ending.
Yeah.
So you have to play those extra 13 levels, which requires getting that item on level 99 if it spawns, and if you get it without dying. So it's a pain in the ass.
Really, I mean, you could just intentionally die in 99 to get the level code and then just play it over and over again till you.
But it doesn't always appear if you use the level code to get to level 99.
Oh,
because it only appears after you've killed so many enemies in a row and are on level 99. And so if you're playing 2-player on level 99, 1 player has to kill them all, and somebody has to grab it before it despawns right before you kill the last enemy. If I remember right. This is all going off of memory.
The level of obtuseness that these bubble dragons have brought to the table.
Right?
Tell me about the sequels.
So not just sequels. It spawned 3 different series of sequels. So you have the first series that was spawned, which was Rainbow Islands and Parasol Stars.
Mm-hmm.
Rainbow Islands was called Bubble Bobble 2 Rainbow Islands, and Parasol Stars was the story of Bubble Bobble 3. They've since retconned that. It has nothing to do with Bubble Bobble anymore. But they are games that follow Bubby and Bobby after they have been turned back into humans. The gameplay is similar, but there's no bubbles anymore. You use rainbows or parasols instead.
I don't like the gameplay in that nearly as much. It's still fun. It's a fun little arcade game, but I do not like the rainbow jumping around even remotely as much as the bubbles.
It's taken me years to warm up to Rainbow Islands. Parasol Stars I've always loved. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And sometimes people lump New Zealand Story into that same series with Rainbow Islands and Parasol Stars.
Isn't that about a tiny little bird?
It's about a kiwi with a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
But it has very similar gameplay, and it's built in the same engine by Taito, so it makes sense that people might lump it in there, but it is not related. Then the second series that spawned started with Bubble Bobble Part 2, which is unrelated to Rainbow Islands Bubble Bobble 2. And it was
alternate universe.
Yeah, it was an NES sequel where they are still dragons or dinosaurs, whichever translation you want to go by, and they are still blowing bubbles. And it is just more of the same. Only now you have a charge shot where you can capture multiple enemies in one bubble. And then it went on to have more sequels: Bubble Symphony, Bubble Memories, and Bubble Bobble for Friends.
But those are all still basically just the same Bubble Bobble.
Same concept, but with extra abilities and different size maps, and some maps that are multiple screens and more bosses and more power-ups and stuff.
Now, Bubble
like that.
Symphony on Saturn I have played, and that was pretty good.
Yeah,
I don't remember if it had continues or not.
I don't recall. I haven't played the Saturn port. I've only played the arcade version.
Mm-hmm.
And it did have continues. And then the third series that spawned from it was Puzzle Bobble, or Bust-A-Move, as it was known in the West for quite a while there, which is a puzzle game where you just launch bubbles at piles of other bubbles, and is not at all a platformer.
Yeah, and it's very fun,
excellent.
And you should play it.
Excellent series.
But definitely it's not Bubble Bobble.
No. But it does have Bubble Bobble characters in it.
As far as final thoughts on Bubble Bobble, it's... I know that I have my complaints, but there are so many Bubble Bobbles, Bubbles Bobble. There are so many of them that it's impossible not to recommend the series, at least in part. I mean, sure, are there some bad versions? Sure, is the arcade version kind of obtuse? Sure, would it be really nice with continues in a lot of the versions? Yeah, but there are so many different versions of the game that basically, if you don't like one thing in one version of it, you can just go look at a list of all the different versions and find one that doesn't have that one thing you don't like, and it'll just be gone. It's very fun. I don't know what it is. I'm not a big single screen arcade person. I think it might just be an age thing. By the time I was a kid, Super Nintendo was out, and single screen arcade games just were not of a level of complexity that I expected from my video games.
I spent most of the Super NES era so angry that there was no Super NES Bubble Bobble game.
But I will say, sitting down and playing NES Bubble Bobble with Andrew was still a great time. It is still a very fun game, and I would say... In Taito's defense of expecting everyone to have a second player, it is way more fun two-player.
Right, yeah, it is definitely designed around that.
So I highly recommend it. I would say Bubble Symphony, I know I really enjoyed.
Yes.
I would still highly recommend the NES and even the arcade versions of Bubble Bobble, because no, you will not beat the arcade version of Bubble Bobble. It's impossible. No one can do it. But it's still really fun along the way.
Yeah, and it's available on the PS4, and I don't think they've released it on the Switch yet. But you can get the arcade version on PS4.
Yeah, Switch got Bubble Bobble for Friends.
Yeah, with the PS4 has that too.
Okay, well, they just don't like the Switch then.
Right.
Thanks, Taito.
Yeah.
Gall.
For me, the charm and the atmosphere and the presentation of Bubble Bobble carries it beyond all of its faults. It's always been one of my favorite franchises. I have been a huge fan of the game and the series for over 30 years now. I regularly go back to it, and no matter how infuriating it can be, I forgive it for all its faults just because of how friendly and upbeat and charming it is.
You can't get that mad at it. You just can't.
Right. Yeah, I feel like it is so goofy and cute and adorable that it's just really hard to get angry at it.
Yeah.
Puzzle Bobble, on the other hand, I've gotten so angry at.
It's not a fair comparison, but I do think I personally prefer Puzzle Bobble just in a general, very high level. It's a video game. That's also a video game. Which would you rather play right now? But Bubble Bobble, Bubble Bobble's a blast. It's just a fun game. It's enjoyable. It's a lot more fun if you have a second player. And you should play it. It's on everything. If you own a video game system, there is a high probability that you can play Bubble Bobble on it.
Unless you own an Xbox.
Or a Super Nintendo. But those aren't very popular at all. So who has those?
There was a Taito Memories collection on PS2 and Xbox that had it, and I think it plays on 360. It won't play on Xbox One, but you can play it on some Xbox.
So unless you're trying to play on Super Nintendo, it's really the only system
or
that
Genesis.
Doesn't.
Well, you could use a power-based converter.
Yeah, you do power-based converter and play on it. Yeah, I'm starting to realize the list of systems that don't have Bubble Bobble or some variation of Bubble Bobble is shorter. N64 got Bust-A-Move, but it didn't get Bubble Bobble.
Right.
I was going to say PSP, but there was a version of Bubble Bobble for PSP.
Bubble Bobble on PSP.
Yeah, there was. Anyway, go play one of them.
Yeah.
Even the bad ones are still okay, honestly. Right. I played some of the bad ones, and they're all right. Not the best versions, but
they still hold up. There's enough good game there that they still hold up.
Yeah. Anyway, we do have some thank yous. This episode was brought to you by the following patrons. A belly alien named Kuato.
Robert Fusco.
Harry Pry.
Impits.
Tima Hughes.
Gary Heather.
Our wonderful producer, Guy Johnson. I swear I picked these randomly, and he just showed up in the second week we were doing this. Thanks, Guy. Third week.
It's the third week, yeah.
Yes, because of batch recording.
Yeah. Sean Schaller.
Gold Leader.
Puff Puff, please.
Are all patrons that support the show over at patreon.com/Retro Warriors. And if you want to get your name read on the show sometimes in some random order, and you also want to get our spinoff show, Talking Wizards, where we mostly just talk about really dumb stuff, if I'm being honest. But you know what? It's a good time.
A lot of cereal.
There is a lot of cereal, and I have more cereal talk for the next episode. So go to our Patreon, and you can find it there. You can also find Cinema Rogues, which is also on our Patreon, but you don't have to be a patron to listen to it. You can just hit the link in the show description. Yeah. It is there. Anyway, do stay tuned. After the ending theme, we're going to have our producer Guy on for the after party to talk about something, I don't know what. We never vet any of it. We probably never will. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, and as always, let us cling together. Party with our producer Guy. Hi, Guy.
Howdy.
You're here, and we definitely haven't talked to you before now.
Ever.
This is our first time speaking. All the other times we recorded our parts separately.
You reminded me when you were talking about Cinema Rogues that one of my goals in the next month or so while I'm not working is to come up with an animation and a logo like the Retro Warriors one so we can stick it on YouTube.
Nice.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun. I can't. I was gonna say I could just do the same kind of logo that I did for Retro Warriors, but I did it in Final Cut, and I no longer own a Macintosh.
Wow.
Although I don't think they want you to call it a Macintosh anymore. It's just Mac.
It's just a Macintosh.
Yeah. Do they still call them Macintoshes?
No,
I don't think that. I think it's just. I think Mac is the technical name of it now.
Yeah.
Hi, Guy.
Hi. Thanks for remembering I'm here.
What's your take on the Bubble Bobbles?
I have never played a Bubble Bobble.
What? None of them?
None of them.
But you're in like prime age demographic for it.
I didn't own it as a child, I guess. And then, I don't know, it just seemed... When I think Bubble Bobble, I think like one of those shooting games where you shoot bubbles and they disappear.
Yeah, that's Puzzle Bobble.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Yep.
But
we just mentioned it a few minutes ago.
But I couldn't see it. I don't know what you're talking
about. You should play. You have an NES Classic. It's on there.
Yeah, it is on your NES Classic.
Oh, is it on NES Online too?
No, not yet.
Why not? What a dumb thing to not put on there.
And to be fair,
beautiful on there.
On my NES Classic is every game. So
right.
Oh, you're one of you. Oh, I was going to say you're one of those people, but that sounds accusatory.
Wow.
What I meant to say was, you did all of them. My mini consoles, because I'm very much on record as being a fan of the mini consoles. I try to keep it just specifically to like stuff that interests me, and that's it. Like I don't want to. Yeah. It's too much selection. You know, it paralyzes me.
I downloaded Hackchi or whatever, and then didn't want to go through the trouble of unchecking things. So you know, it's just
all of it. All 900 North American NES games.
I have the same ROM collection that I've had since the late 90s, mid 90s, whenever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's just carried from one computer to another over the decades. And anytime I can put NES ROMs on something, I'm like, I should put the same batch of games on it. So that's with some exceptions that have joined over the years, but that is what is on my NES Classic, is that same batch of like 100 games.
Dude, speaking of ROMs and going back to games, I've been playing about I think 10 hours of Final Fantasy Tactics in the last couple days.
The PS1, the original?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever gotten much further than Chapter 1.
Yeah.
And right now I'm right at just past the end of it. And realizing that all of my stuff is just weirdly leveled, so I spent some time today like power leveling some chemists and squires.
You gotta watch out on power leveling and that. You can get fucked that way.
Yeah, I just wanted to master those 2 base classes for my 5 main characters.
That's fair.
Yeah, so that was fun.
I do recommend against using a Game Shark on that game, because if you max out your experience, the story battles will become just cake.
Mm-hmm.
But the random encounters all level up with you, and so they will also be level 99, but they expect you to have the best equipment too. So if you're using entry-level equipment at level 99 and the enemies are level 99, they're all going to one-shot you, and you will instantly die.
Yeah, I found that out in 1999 after spending 2 hours with Ramza in one battle, just speeding up everybody.
Right.
Oh my God! Yeah, it was terrible. You know what I did figure out here, 21 years later, that you can see their job points as they're accumulating in the battle.
Yeah, in the status menu or whatever, right?
Yeah, you got to press an extra button, but it pops up. Right. I was like, all right, nice. Let's see what else I got in my notes here. PS1. Oh yeah, that day that Saturn played Guacamelee 2 for 10 hours straight.
What?
Yeah, somehow there was some kind of glitch between the Xbox Live reporting and Discord.
Mm-hmm.
And so Discord kept reporting that I was playing Guacamelee 2 hours after I turned it off. And nothing I could do would make Discord think that I disconnected my Xbox Live account from my Discord. I shut down Discord on every device I had. I powered off. I power cycled my Xbox. I logged out of my Xbox and logged back in. I was doing everything I could think of, and I'd reopen Discord and be like, playing Guacamelee 2 for 8 hours and 41 minutes. I'm like, how is that still happening?
It's not possible.
So there's an alternate universe where you were playing it for 8 solid hours.
I was really into it.
I don't know. It seems like a thing.
That was the day my copy of Cold Steel 4 showed up, so I know I wasn't playing it anymore at that point.
I mean, I still need to go back to Cold Steel 1. I stopped playing it probably a couple weeks ago.
That happens.
But I think I'm on chapter 4 or 5. I don't know.
You're getting pretty close to the end.
I'm at I'm on the 4th level, like the 4th floor, I think, on the
of the
school,
of the old schoolhouse.
Yeah. So
nice.
I don't know. The system seems fine. I'm not convinced that I'm playing it correctly, but I'm winning the fights. You know what I mean?
The battle system in Cold Steel 1 and 2 especially is very easily exploitable. If you just always use whatever ability delays the enemy's turn, you can pretty much prevent any enemy from ever acting ever.
Right, that's what I do. Like, I get behind them, I get my 3 times bonus or whatever.
Right.
And then use it's either accelerate or whatever that the main character dude has.
Yeah.
And then the defense up that that his buddy from the first day has.
Yeah. It's also the auto heal spell.
Yeah. I just use
the
those two.
win ability, yeah.
Yeah, use those 2 at the beginning of the fight and just that's it. So
you just wail on them. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said,
you're doing it right.
Okay, good. I was like, I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't know what any of these other spells really do. But my link attacks go off every so often, so that seems accurate.
That's nice of them.
It's how I play most games. I don't ever know if I'm doing it right. And then eventually I get halfway through and I realize not only have I done it wrong, but I've screwed myself out of being able to do it right.
Right. Yeah, so like your Dark Souls experience.
Yeah, basically. I get halfway through and I'm like, oh no, I have an unusable build.
I was at the end of Cold Steel 2 when I was just dying over and over to this one boss, and I read online somewhere. I was like, use this one basic ability you've had since the very beginning of the first game that delays the enemy's turn so much that it will never be able to move at all. And I was like, is that what that does? And I tried it, and I did not get touched for the rest of that game.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man,
I do love games
speaking
that
of
give
impossible to use, guess what? I was recording for about an hour and a half today, YouTube videos, and ran out of space on my recording machine.
No.
And so it's like, hey, yeah, you've got a 31 gig file, but we can't tell you how long it is because we didn't finish writing the header.
Oh, no.
So,
bummer.
I got to see if I can find a way to like spoof a header on an MP4.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Otherwise, it's just totally gone.
Yeah.
Right. That sucks.
So, which, I don't know. I've gone to a new recording schedule where I'll record as much as I feel like I can during the week. And then Saturday is my encoding and uploading day.
That's fair.
So if I can record 3.5 hours, like it feels less pressury to me. And then I have a specific day. And if I only get 4 videos done in a week, I only get 4 videos done in a week, you know?
That's fair.
Yeah.
So it's making me happier to play. I've been playing the Outer Worlds lately. And
it's such a fun game.
There might just be an hour and a half chunk missing out of that, which to be fair is like 2 conversations probably. But
yeah, missing an hour or 2 out of that game is that's not a lot.
It's the longest fucking game.
I beat it. The whole game I think was 15 hours for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt a lot longer. And also like the game's very much like, hey, it's the end of the game. If you want to go to the end of the game, the end of the game's right over there if you want to do it. And I could have done a lot of other stuff, but I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then I just did it, and then I was done. Yeah, it is one of those games where you spend a lot of time just like searching empty boxes and talking to this guy over and over till you can maybe get a discount on something.
Yeah, well, and playing it for YouTube, I also go through a lot of the dialogue options.
Yeah.
So it's really like hit a button for like 5 minutes and then, go do something.
That was one of the few games I really did exhaust a lot of the dialogue in because it was well written with fun characters and I liked it.
Yeah. Like I've gotten attached to Parvati and Vicar Max. I mean, they're your first 2 companions.
Yeah.
But their interactions with each other behind you when you're walking around are funny.
As soon as I could get the robot, he never left.
Yeah, I just got him. And I don't know. I haven't, like, I'm using Parvati as my tank, so it seems dumb to have a robot in there.
Yeah, but he says dumb stuff.
Oh, really?
It's not. So for people that haven't played the game, you basically get a janitorial robot that can join your party. And so he's just saying regular things you imagine a janitor robot would say, but while fighting a giant scorpion, And it's just fun.
That's why I like Vicar Max so much. Because you hit his special abilities and he's like, pray to me now, you bitch. And then like fires a shotgun into the legs of a marauder.
Damn.
Man, what a fun game. I should go replay that.
It's a good one, man. I'm playing through it for like the first time I think I got maybe 5 or 6 hours in and then stopped. So having beaten Luigi's Mansion 3, trying to play it a second time, I was like, okay, now let me try a long game.
Yeah. So. I think like if you really wore it out, it can be more than 20, 25 hours max.
Yeah. So that's doable,
Yeah. I do, because I love those. I can't really call them anything other than Bethesda style RPGs because that's what it is. It's basically, Fallout. But I love them, but I never have the patience to sit there for that many hours of it. Like, it's like, yeah, I'll do a good 15, 20 hours of just running random dungeons or whatever. But then I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go now. Bye.
Yeah. I think I would guess that a lot of people reach that stage in most games that they play where, like, going into it, they want to explore the game and what the world has to offer. But then after a certain point, they're like, no, just get me to the end, please.
Yeah. I've never been, I know, Saturn, you get this, but I've never been like, oh, I'm 3/4 of the way through this game, I have to see it through. I will very often just be like, I've had enough of it. Like, I'm happy. I had a good time. I enjoyed my time with it, and I'm done. I don't need any more of it. Like, I'm full. Like, I can't.
You took your no thank you bite?
Yeah, that's what it was.
You can't do that. Unless I'm just literally not enjoying the experience, I can't do it. I can't stop.
Yeah, there are a lot of games I've played, and I'm like, I have enough of that. I enjoyed it. It was fun. Goodbye. I don't need to know how you end, and if I do need to know, I'll go YouTube it.
Yeah, I start to feel anxiety about having not finished it. I'm like, but what if something else happens? So I could just watch a video. But what if it's slightly different when I play it?
Well, you can watch a different video.
Right.
Oh, hey, I've been watching a playthrough of Silent Hill, the first one, because I only ever got like 10 minutes into it.
You beat me then.
Hey.
I got when you start the game, it's all foggy, and then a thing comes out of the fog, right?
There's a weird camera angle, and then some shit pops out, and you pass out.
Yeah, I was done.
So you're in the fog, and nothing's happening. Then you walk into an alleyway, and then it gets darker, and then it gets darker, and then there's a lot of barbed wire everywhere, and then little children with knives show up, and then you die. That's how the game starts.
I noped out right there. I was like, no thanks, goodbye. Back to the video store.
I think I noped out slightly after that when you're just constantly chased in the town by...
pterodactyls?
Yeah.
Yeah.
By those things. Yeah. Because, like, watching this guy play, I think it's, like, his third video, and they're, like, in 30-minute segments.
Right.
And in this third video, he gets to, like, a school. And I was like, oh, there's a school in this game?
Yeah, you can beeline to the school as soon as you leave the diner, like 15 minutes into the game. But if you don't know the way to the school, you can spend a whole fucking hour roaming around the town.
Yeah. Well, we are at time, but Guy, thank you for producing the show, and thank you for being on the show.
Hey, you know what? You're welcome, and thank you for thanking me on today's show.
Oh, you're so sweet. Go listen to Guy on Cinema Rogues or watch him on his YouTube channel, which is Sidetail Studios on YouTube.
Yeah.
Question mark?
You say it so confidently.
Well, I always forget on YouTube if it still has the studios on the end. Sidetail Studios on YouTube, and you can listen to Guy on Cinema Rogues where he talks to Andrew about movies. I say it like you don't critique movies. I say it like you're just like, I saw the movie, cool, me too, bye.
I mean, this last episode, it took us almost a month because the movie is so heavy. I don't think either of us wanted to watch or talk about it.
Well, thanks for all that you do for us. And thank you people at home or in your car or wherever you are for listening to the show. This is very long, but it's over. Thank you. Good night.
Great outro, Justin.
Bye.
Bye.